All right, we're recording now. Welcome everybody back to the channel. I've got a special guest today, Carl Zha. A lot of the people on my channel know who he is. The host of Silk and Steel podcast, a very addictive podcast. Carl, you are like a
Thank
walking
you.
encyclopedia of Chinese history and history beyond that as well. But we've been connected for a while on Twitter, and we finally getting together on an actual call, on a recorded call.
Yes.
Seems like it's long overdue. So what we're going to be doing is we're not doing this one live, but we have a topic that we want to talk about. We want to kind of try to keep it as short as possible. I don't know if it will happen or not, but we'll see how it goes. And then in the future, maybe if this, depending on how this goes, we can do a live stream also. I might be periodically turning my volume down because there's a bunch of construction going on in this building.
That's fine.
I just moved. Yeah, I just moved to this apartment, and this building, it finished building in 2008. And the building I was in before this was a brand new building. So once in a while, you'd get renovation noises. And I thought, okay, this is cool. I can move here, and there's going to be nobody renovating. In this garden, there are about 48 apartments renovating right now. It is absolutely crazy. Like when you go out in the garden, you can hear construction noise all around you. I think.
Is it because of COVID? Is it because
I think
people?
yeah, there's a couple of things. During COVID, everything kind of stopped. So now everybody's getting everything in, trying to finish before Chinese New Year. And apartment sales have been going crazy here. So a bunch of people have moved in and they're renovating it however they want. But
that's right, because you live in Shenzhen, right? Everybody wants to move to Shenzhen. My wife wants to visit.
Yeah, you might end up moving permanently. It is a great place, but they're relaxing the hukou rules and everything like that to get more people into Shenzhen also. So
nice.
I think it's just gonna keep going. But so the topic at hand we're gonna talk about. It all started on one specific video, a really interesting video, which was showing poverty in America. And the way that they positioned it was quite interesting. A lot of people thought it was a Chinese ad, but it actually wasn't. And there's a lot of interesting things going on with that when you really drill it down. So how about what we do is I'll play the video first so everybody can see what we're talking about. And then we will go into a discussion. We'll talk about what you mentioned first, and then we'll continue on from there. So let's play this video now so everybody knows what we're talking about here. Here we go.
美国，这个全球最富裕的国家之一，仍面临着饥饿的困扰。在这个国家，尽管食品供应过剩，却仍有4900万美国人在挨饿。许多人无力负担健康的食物来提升生活品质。帮助美国，从现在开始。
All right, so that's it. Quite interesting. That'll definitely get some emotions going. But so why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is about and everything like that, and then we'll go in from there.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw people tweeting that on social media, the first thing I noticed is like there's no possible way that's a Chinese ad, because that, as you would know, because you're pretty familiar with the Chinese social media and Chinese media space in general, that kind of ad just doesn't play in China because you won't resonate with the audience. The Chinese audience will be confused. Like, what? U.S. is poor? Because like in most Chinese thinking mind, U.S. is still this very powerful, this rich place. And so that first of all, it's a huge disconnect with the audience. And I know it must be a American ad, because I remember there was a similar ad that was played a few years back. It was about supposedly in the Chinese university, the Chinese professor talking to the students on how they're gonna surpass US and take over, and that. Yes, that was also like American political ad, and they actually had like Chinese Americans playing the extras, and I just thought this ad is so funny because they even play like the sentimental Chinese music in the background, right? And make it like very Chinese, but it is so like this, the concept and execution is so American. So because it's designed to shock its audience. The intended audience is American, and because in the U.S. mind, China was kind of this backward country that people are poor and starving that need our help, and so it's playing that reverse psychology, and also plays into kind of the current anxiety in the U.S. society after the great financial recession. Yeah, I just laugh because it's kind of it works in many. There's so many things to unwrap there.
Oh, there is. In fact, though, it would have made actually a really good poverty alleviation propaganda video for China to say that we've gotten to the point now where we've eradicated poverty. Now we can look outside and try to help, poorer countries elsewhere. And but the thing is that it's an American company. But the interesting thing about it is the concept and the reason that they're doing this is because it does play on their emotions. It does play on this idea that they're number one. So now if another country did make a commercial like this, it would be like the ultimate insult, where they're saying, "Oh my God," because those look exactly like the ads when we were growing up on TV, where they were showing Americans helping poor kids in Africa. It's the same.
I remember those ads. For $1 donation, you can sponsor a child. I in 1990s, I see those ads on TV every day.
So if within one generation you got to the point now where it's reversed, where these countries now, and if you even had an African nation doing that, people would feel so insulted by it. And like you said, there's a lot to unwrap about that in terms of why is that, in terms of perhaps also reflecting on potentially how condescending, even though they came from a good place, those ads when we were growing up about helping these poor African countries, while meanwhile on the other end, we're exploiting their their resources and everything like that, and then we're creating this system where they're reliant on donations to survive.
Yeah. But we're helping them. We're helping them. Yeah.
There's a lot of things, like you said, to unwrap, but probably the biggest thing is this idea that people will say, "No way. There's no way that we're going to need people outside to come in and help us. We're number one. What happened?"
Yeah, and also it's like another thing is shocking is China is not the one that's supposed to be stepping in to help us. The role is reversed here, because it's shocking. Precisely, it's because China is supposedly making this ads. It's almost, and a lot of Americans automatically assuming this is China flexing on US. Right. It's also a very American mentality too. If somebody doing this, they're definitely flexing on us. They're kind of throwing shade on us. They're mocking us, right? Whereas, go ahead.
So no, that's the interesting thing is they wouldn't be able to do that in a genuine way. Where what if they really did want to help? What if there was a group of people in China who said this situation in the U.S. is really serious and we want to come out and help them? There's no way it would be accepted in a genuine way. And then I can point to actually a recent example is that when you're saying about throwing shade at the U.S., that's exactly what happened. Let me see if I've got it open here, where we had a situation. Give me 1 second.
Take your time.
My son is knocking on the door here, and I got to tell him I'm going to call. 1 second.
Take your time. Hi, guys. It's my show now. I'm Carl Zha. I'm in my backyard in Bali. This is actually my dog shed. I kicked the dogs out.
All right, I'm gonna clip that out. But, yeah, he might show up again. So yeah, but what it was the Chinese Foreign Ministry, they said that they hope that America regains their stability soon, and they were talking about these riots and stuff like that, and they took that as an insult, saying, "Wow, what are you talking about? That we're going to restore, peace and calm and stuff like that? You're not allowed to say that to us. We're only allowed to say that to you."
Exactly.
So that's exactly what would have happened if that poverty alleviation video really was a Chinese video. I think it would have blown up.
There was actually a real documentary on Chinese poverty alleviation. and it was done in cooperation with PBS, the U.S. Public media, and they were polled. They were supposed to show on PBS in U.S. about the China's fight against poverty, but they actually pulled the video because some congressmen complained it's CCP propaganda. The Chinese Communist propaganda.
Can you imagine that? Yeah, it's because what we have. Actually, you know what? Let me play. I have that clip right here. So let me play that the 30-second trailer for that. Let me see here.
This is the inside story of China's race to eradicate all extreme poverty by 2020. With unprecedented access, we travel the country embedded in China's poverty alleviation campaign. We witness poor families with customized plans. We watch local officials held accountable. President Xi Jinping is counting on its success.
Yeah, so that was it. That's the one you were talking about, right?
Yes, the PBS Frontline documentary.
So that was pulled, and it was just because it was too positive. It's like how this is going to be really problematic to show how good of a job China is doing amidst the attempt to villainize everything they do. So I'm going to share my screen here now, and I'm going to show if this particular thing. Oh, I can't see the. Okay, no, I don't know. It's not coming up. But there was. Do you remember there was a guy, David Rennie? He was going around showing the poverty alleviation effort, saying people were given free houses and everything like that.
Yes, I remember that.
And he said, but they're hanging Xi Jinping posters on the wall. They were given a free house, but at what cost? They put a Xi poster on the wall.
So this guy, I think he's a columnist for one of the UK publication. I forgot whether it's The Economist or FT, but he actually has a very interesting family history in that his father was actually a former head of MI6, his former director of MI6, and his brother was tried for smuggling opium out of Hong Kong in 1970s, and he actually cost his dad's job when that scandal broke out. So this is a guy, who is throwing shade on China's poverty alleviation, and he had this whole thread, about his visit to this Chinese village, and first of all, he got, there's a lot of details he got wrong, because he said he went to a ethnic Tibetan village, but it's actually an ethnic Yi village in Liangshan, Daliangshan, in Sichuan, in western Sichuan. You can tell because they're actually the ethnic Yi scripts that written on some of the on the wall on some of the pictures that he posted. So he doesn't know what he's talking about, actually he got owned by the comments, because there's a lot of Americans who were actually saying, I wouldn't mind hanging Xi Jinping's poster on the wall if I get a free house too, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it was quite remarkable. But my point in bringing that up was saying that if that documentary was littered with little things like that, saying, yeah, China raised hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, but if they added enough buts in, I'm sure it wouldn't have been banned. And it reminds me of a really good article I saw recently where they were talking about what the real China threat is, and the real China threat is that. It might cause the American establishment to have to do the unthinkable, to look inwards and actually fix their own problems. And that a documentary like that showing what they're doing within the poverty alleviation category definitely would create a bigger risk for that.
Yes. I think the article you mentioned was in the Palladium magazine. I think Richard Hania wrote that. It's so I mean, for people who have been to China, who have lived in China, such as yourself, it's obvious that the reality about China that's presented in the Western media is like night and day difference from the day-to-day reality inside China itself. I remember when I first came to US in 1990, because I was just hungry about news from my homeland. So I would, trying to find any kind of mention about China in New York Times, Washington Post. Back in 1990s, it weren't that much. But what I did find is the China they describe is totally unrecognizable to me. I grew up in China in 1980s. The China they describe is all existing a parallel planet, and I think I read John Fairbank, one of the old China hands in U.S. He actually wrote a book about the perception of China in the U.S. consciousness, and he mentioned the phenomena where when the Westerners talk about China, they're not really talking about China. They're using China as a foil about their own domestic problem, just like that ad, just like the poverty ad that you mentioned in the beginning. It's not that ad is not about China. It's not a Chinese ad. It's about U.S. It's really about the U.S. The deep anxiety in U.S. right now about our place in the world, about losing the lead, losing the U.S. hegemony, right? Because that's what the ad is speaking to. It's like, oh my God, how could this happen? How could even the Chinese are, like talking down to us right now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this was the one I was talking about. So the article is, exactly the one you mentioned, saying that China's true menace is neither military nor geopolitical, but rather ideological. Its continuing success, even if in no way harms the prosperity of security of most Americans, poses a major threat to the American political establishment, how it justifies its own power, and its understanding of the U.S.'s role in the world. And then more importantly, this one, while most Americans will never experience a ride on a Chinese bullet train and remain oblivious in differences in areas like infrastructure quality, major accomplishments in highly visible frontiers like space travel or cancer treatment could drive home the extent to which the U.S. has fallen behind. Under such conditions, the best-case scenario for most Americans would be a nightmare for many national security and bureaucratic elites. For the U.S. to give up on policing the world and instead turn inward and focus on finding out where exactly our institutions have gone wrong. I think that sums it up really well.
Yeah, because you will find a lot of articles, even right now, they talk about, even though this is what happened in U.S., the whole political circus, it's so terrible. It's terrible because it makes us look bad in the eyes of other nations. It's harder for people to take us seriously when we're saying we are here to enforce peace and prosperity. I mean, these people's priority is still, maintain the U.S. hegemony in the other side of the globe rather than fixing the domestic issue. Because what happened in U.S. domestically really is a U.S. domestic issue. But for these pundits, they don't really care about what happens in U.S. They don't care about the fixing domestic problems. So all they care about is, oh no, that's going to make us look bad to continue functioning as a world policeman.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of something like this, apologize if you can hear the drilling noise now. Is that coming through on the microphone?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay, good. When an event like this happens, that would be, for a country that is really intent on policing the world, that's the biggest thing. It's not that they're saying, oh, wow, this has uncovered some really serious issues in our political system, the divides throughout the country. No, it's like, well, we're going to look so bad. Imagine what the Chinese people are going to say. And that's why when they said just the simplest thing, saying, we hope you restore your peace and stability soon, they're like, whoa, why are you saying that to us? What are you trying to say? Oh, no.
There's a lot of projection. It's like if China said that, the only reason they say, oh, they're hoping for peace and stability in U.S. The only reason is that they're mocking us. They're flexing on us because that's an American mentality.
That's what it would mean when they're saying that we
Exactly.
have some serious issues with your. We hope you can restore prosperity and peace soon, because usually it comes with, and we're coming in to help, so that it goes in the direction that they want. So if they say something like that to another country, I think it usually comes with that intention, saying that okay, now there's an underlying separate meaning there.
Yeah. There's some cognitive dissonance going on in U.S. because they instinctively pick that up when it happens to them, but they don't realize. Most Americans actually don't realize how condescending it is when they're speaking to the rest of the world in such a manner.
Right, yeah. No, it's true. And I think this one really sums it up. Let me see if you can read this on the screen. Let's see here. This guy, do you remember this tweet? He says the pandemic is strengthening the CCP like nothing else before. Chinese society will think that their model of development is way better than anything the West has to offer. It will take years, if not decades, to change this perception.
Oh yeah, this. I mean, isn't it true? I mean, just look at how China handled COVID. It's obvious right now. I mean, even to people in the West, that China has done a way better job of handling this unexpected crisis than most of the Western government, especially all the Anglo government, like all the Five Eyes countries, U.S., U.K., Canada. I mean, Australia and New Zealand did a little better but they're helped by geography because they happen to be they happen to be islands.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, that's exactly what you mentioned about the cognitive dissonance. Like, you could the Chinese government could raise hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and the reaction isn't going to be, "Wow, how did they do that? That's great. That's amazing." It's like it's a panic. It's saying, "Oh my God, people are going to actually think this is an effective government." They're not gonna come to the conclusion saying that this is an effective government. They're doing something right. It's like, no, we got to stop this somehow. Block that PBS documentary. Run some other stories. When
Chinese government is doing something to improve the life of Chinese people, it's bad because it actually fosters a perception among Chinese people that Chinese government is doing good things. I mean, people don't hear themselves talk.
No, they don't. And I think this, going back to that poverty video, the one that was made by Americans, like I said, if something like that really actually happened, it's going to be such a shock to the identity of people in the West that it's going to be really hard for them to deal with. I was thinking also this morning, my third son, actually the one who was just knocking on the door just now, at his school, he has a classmate who is an American girl, and she was adopted by Chinese parents. So I'm not exactly sure how it happened, if they adopted her in America and brought her back. And that's a story you never hear about. But if that started happening in a major way, like it was happening in the opposite direction, back when Americans were coming over, well-intentioned Americans, there was a place in Guangzhou they would go, they'd find a Chinese girl to adopt and take her back to the more prosperous America at that time. You imagine if that started happening in reverse, if all of a sudden Chinese families were adopting American kids, they would not accept that. It's only allowed to go in one direction.
No.
I
mean, the irony is that U.S. is still the most rich, most powerful country in the world, and all these people are freaking out because China is doing better now than before. I mean, like it's like a lot of the problem in U.S. is self-inflicted, right? It has nothing to do with China, but people in U.S. are freaking out when China seems to be doing better. I mean, like, when the Chinese people see themselves doing better, they're not thinking, "Oh, we're gonna do better to own the Americans." They just want their life to improve. But for U.S., even something that's totally unrelated, like poverty reduction in China itself, must be, Chinese government must be doing this to own U.S., to prove their mode of governance or something like that. It's ridiculous.
I think what's happening on a psychological level is a lot of the people who are feeling threatened or they're feeling anxiety by this, I don't think they're innately, they're not they're not bad people, but it's just really a shock to their identity. I think probably some of even the same American parents who adopted a Chinese girl over to America, if all of a sudden it started happening in reverse, I bet even these well-intentioned people who wanted to give a poor child a home, even they would probably feel anxiety about that happening in the other direction, saying this isn't supposed to be happening. And I think
because American exceptionalism permeates everything in US, like we are raised from school to believe in manifest destiny, right? Like it's a thing. US is a powerful force for good in the world. Like people actually believe that. Like, US Americans talk about Chinese people being brainwashed all the time, but they don't realize there's so much propaganda going on in US. They have been raised with this propaganda all their life. Like in China, in places like China, people know, when the state media comes out with something, they know, oh, that's state media. That's a government position. People understand that. In US, they don't understand, when the propaganda is done by corporation, it's still propaganda. It's corporate propaganda, but it's still propaganda.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it does shape quite a lot of the mindset. This idea, this underlying idea too, that people probably that countries should know their places. You were always down there, and you're supposed to be down there. I think it's created this kind of an environment. And then, of course, the big propaganda piece that everybody is tying into also is that if propagandists overseas are looking for a 2-for-1 combo, they will do this, which you brought up before, which is continually mentioning so poverty alleviation programs in Xinjiang, where Uyghurs are being, finding employment opportunities and everything like that. It must be slave labor. That's the
only explanation. Yeah, that's only explanation. Is Adrian Zenz came out in one of his tweet thread, which got retweeted many times by his friends and buddies in the China Watcher crowd. He makes a point that the Chinese government is even replacing the Han migrant workers with the Uyghur laborers to pick cottons in Xinjiang. I'm like, wait. So okay, because a few years back, one of his buddies, like one of the guys who worked for the Human Rights China, this back in 2009, one day after the Urumqi riot, he posted a picture of the Han migrant workers from other parts of China going to Xinjiang to pick cottons. And he basically implied this is a problem. These people coming in and yeah, they're taking the jobs away from local Uyghurs, right? And now that Chinese government is apparently addressing the problem, is trying to divert more work to the locals. That is because the locals must be doing slave labor because cotton picking is a back-breaking labor. Nobody wants to do except slaves. It has to be slaves. There was actually a Chinese woman who she's a liberal, and she's not like no fan of the Chinese Communist government at all. She often criticizes the Chinese government, but she actually posted a thread about her own family from Shandong, from very rural Shandong background. One of her auntie used to go to Xinjiang every cotton season to pick cotton, just because, that was, you offer better wage than their native village. And they would just go there every summer. And her auntie actually suggested to her, it's like, oh yeah, you should try this. You'll make good money because you're shorter, you're closer to the ground to pick cotton. and now now Chinese government is trying to shift the cotton picking work from the migrant worker to local Uyghur. Somehow now that's a crime. That's an evidence of slave labor. It's I actually read Adrian Zen's report. Like a lot of people, I know a lot of people just read the headlines. So I actually read his report. There's a lot of innuendos, but there's actually no evidence suggesting those Uyghurs working picking cottons are being coerced. Like he's implying, there's a lot of innuendo that he implied they may have been coerced because Chinese government is an authoritarian government. Because Chinese government sent officials to oversee this effort. So that must mean these people are being monitored. That means they're performing unfree labor. Therefore, they're slaves. I mean, there's a lot of leap of logic in the report.
Yeah, there was. It doesn't matter what they're doing too. It doesn't matter if it's backbreaking work. You constantly see these people downloading videos from TikTok of Uyghurs who have their own TikTok account, filming themselves, putting shoes together and stuff like that, and dancing to some music while they're doing it, and saying this is a slave laborer dancing to music, uploading his own TikTok video. And there's an underlying kind of, I think, a racist element about it too, where it's constantly, as soon as anybody sees a Uyghur doing any sort of work, they immediately assume that they're slave laborers. Like they can't integrate into society and they can't function in society on their own. They can't find a job on their own. Their only possible way that this person is employed is through a slave labor program. And it's weirdly kind of racist also when you think about it.
I like that reminds me, because it just maybe 10, 20 years back, that actually applies to all Chinese people. Like whenever whenever there's something about Chinese people working, they'll say, "Oh, slave labor. Look at those Chinese slave labor." So this is a meme that has been ongoing in the West. It's what I'm talking about this kind of the constant brainwashing and propaganda we're subjected to in places like United States. It's like, oh, Chinese people are working. Oh, they're making Apple phones. Oh, must be slave labor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And with the Uyghur thing, I remember also when they were posting, there was one where they were saying, I think it was like Skechers shoes or something like that were produced, and some different clothing. And it was by a Hong Kong company named Astral or something like that. There was a guy, one of my followers on Twitter from Hong Kong. He said he used to work for this company and he's been to the factories in Xinjiang, and it's completely BS, because it's based on, when you actually read the reports also, it's based on all presumptions saying, well, this must be happening because it's the Chinese government, and there's no actual evidence of any of this stuff going on. But yeah, I mean,
and people say, oh, like how could Chinese government is hiding all the information. How could we know? I keep on pointing out, there's actually no restriction on travel to Xinjiang. If you have a valid Chinese visa, well, I mean, right now COVID is a little bit different, but under normal circumstances, if you have a valid visa in China, if you're clear to travel in China, you can travel to Xinjiang. It's just a matter of buying a ticket on the high-speed train, and then you end up in Urumqi. I mean, like, nobody is going to stop you. You can talk to the locals,
Yeah, no, that's right. And, the ironic thing about it all as well is that the company, ASPI, that's producing a lot of these forced labor stories, they are funded by the military-industrial complex, and they use prison labor in the U.S., which is essentially slave labor. If you look at the pennies on the hour that they're getting, and how they have to pay for their own way to get there, the extra hours for the guards and everything like that. But that's an additional ironic point here. I don't know if you see that coming up on the screen.
Yes,
here.
And that's another point about projection, right? Everything U.S. is accusing China of doing, that's already happening in U.S. Like, there's concentration camps along the U.S.-Mexican border where we held children, behind barbed wire. That's real. And then we have like plenty of evidence. And then we do have U.S. is a common practice to use a prison labor, to use slave labor in U.S. But people. Again, it's American exceptionalism. People assume, oh, because U.S. is doing all these bad things, China must be doing it too, because U.S. is the norm, right? U.S. is the norm, the standard upon which the rest of the world must live up to.
China must be doing at bare minimum cultural genocide, because we did actual genocide when we were, on our natives. So it must be going on. It doesn't matter that their birth rates have gone up, their population has gone up, while the opposite is still going on in the U.S. and with these populations that were actually genocided. But you're right. Yeah. It's
I mean, exactly. There's a reason. Adrian Zenz and his people know what they're doing, right? By the way, Adrian Zenz worked for victim of communism, right? And the people who literally defend Nazis, they list the Nazi as the Nazi death as victims of communism in their website.
When the Soviet defeated them, all of the Nazis who were killed by them during those battles are victims of communism.
Yeah, but Adrian Zenz know what he's doing, because they understand U.S. has this history with slavery, and particularly with cotton, right? The cotton, it was a big part of the U.S. slavery story. So people pick that up subconsciously. People will associate slave labor with picking cotton. So they know what they're doing when they're doing that Uyghur cotton picker story.
That's interesting. Yeah, if the factory stories didn't get enough traction, because we've been through that before, where all Chinese people in factories are slave laborers because who else would do factory work? And this is probably when a lot of factories were closing down and exporting stuff overseas. So it's like, of course we're exporting them to slave laborers. Who else would do this work? But I lost my thought here. Cotton. So what you were saying, maybe they made that deliberate pivot towards cotton, saying, oh, you know what? We have a history of putting slaves to work, African slaves to work on the cotton fields. This story is really going to, touch some emotional strings here. So it probably was a very conscious, because that's what these people are. They are propagandists.
And if you actually look at the data that Adrian Zenz listed to support his claim, he's claiming, a huge majority percentage of the cotton picking down in southern Xinjiang, which is where the majority of Uyghur lives, are done by locals. Right. That's literally his evidence. It's like the cotton pickers in Kashgar and Khotan, those places are done by the Kashgar and Khotan locals. So
imagine that. Imagine
that. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's, I said we were going to do a short video. We're well over 30 minutes now, but I think we've got a bunch of other topics we can add in.
Sure.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the link to your YouTube channel and your podcast and everything like that. People should definitely check it out. You had, we'll finish on a more personal note. You had a bit of a surfing accident. I haven't asked you since then. Are your injuries all better now?
Yeah. I'm 99%. I'm gonna head back to surf maybe later today.
Oh, awesome! Will today be your first day, or you've been doing it for the last few days?
No. This will be my first day. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. All right, well, let's wrap it up here, and then we've got a bunch of other topics we can discuss, and we can do that in the future. And because this was more or less a trial to see how everything went, the connection, we can even think about doing a live stream next time as well.
That would be great. Yeah, I love it.
All right. Okay, sounds good. So I'll catch you guys next time, and we'll continue offline here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for